My name is Bart van der Vossenberg, and this is presentation 1.3, the use of EPPO standard PM7 129 version 1 of the Practibar course package. During the Practibar course, background information and hands-on training is provided for the use of DNA barcoding in the framework of plant health. In this presentation, we'll visit the EPPO website and look at the DNA barcoding standard for selected EU-regulated organisms. We'll touch upon the organism-specific appendices, the analysis section, and on quality assurance considerations that have been implemented in the standard. This is the EPPO website, which can be reached through www.eppo.int. And under the resources section, you can find the different EPPO standards. Diagnostic standards you can find in section PM7. And these diagnostic standards encompass standards specific for different organisms, but also generic horizontal standards for instance, quality assurance. And under number 129, you have the DNA barcoding standard. And by clicking on the hyperlink, you can get access to the document. And from the EPPO website, you can download it to your own computer. So the layout of the EPPO standard for DNA barcoding is similar to other EPPO standards. So first it describes the scope of the document and gives a general introduction to the method. Also, it indicates where you can find material that you can use as reference in your own analyses, how to provide feedback on this protocol, revisions, and an acknowledgements and references section. So, and then we have, per organism group, we have a dedicated appendix. And for each organism group, these appendices look the same. So again, general information on the DNA barcoding of arthropods is provided. Then we have a table with regulated species that were successfully identified using the barcoding protocols described in this standard. And also, if multiple tests are available, it is indicated which ones are used for successful identification. So in these cases, the test described under 2.2 suffices for identification. Here we have a diagnostic testing scheme, which also helps you to choose which tests should be used for successful identification. And then per test, and that's under the methods section, then we have a detailed description per test. So first of all, it starts with nucleic acid extraction and purification. And in this case, we have a particular kit described. That doesn't mean that other kits cannot be used, but the validation data that has been generated for these protocols were determined using the descriptions in this protocol. So then we have the first PCR test, PCR sequencing of a given size of an amplicon, the locus, the information on the primers to be used, and if they are used for PCR amplification and for Sanger sequencing. So in this case, we have both. And then we have a master mix that indicates the makeup of the reaction mix. thermocycler profile, and important information on the amplified region itself that you will need in the analysis of your sequence data. So in this case, we have the mitochondrial CO1, which is a protein coding region, and then translation table 5 applies. Also, with this primer pair, you will get a sequence with a codon starting in reading frame 2 of the primer trimmed consensus sequence. So this will help you to analyze the data and to assess whether or not you have created a reliable consensus sequence. So here we have the other tests described for arthropods, and the makeup is actually the same. So first, again, you have the primer table, and in this test under 2.3 we have a cocktail of primers that are used for amplification, which are all M13 tailed, and then you use the M13 primers for Sanger sequencing. So then we have essential procedural information for arthropods, and these give guidance on which controls to use during PCR amplification and DNA extraction. Under section 4 we have the performance criteria available, which were generated under the Euphresco DNA barcoding project. And here there's information on analytical sensitivity, specificity, scroll down, selectivity, which actually does not apply in this case, diagnostic sensitivity, and reproducibility. And that basically ends Appendix 1, which deals with arthropods. Then we have Appendix 2 for the DNA barcoding on bacteria, which has the same makeup, only here you can see that the table view of regulated organisms and the loci to be used to reach a successful identification is much more complex. This is also reflected in the diagnostic testing scheme. So first you start out with DNA extraction, then you have a generic 16S ribosomal DNA amplification and sequencing, and then depending on the genus identity you end up with, you choose your additional locus or loci even. So for these species or pathivars actually and subspecies mentioned here, you would need the combination of 16S, gyrase B, and the AVR-BS2 gene. And for all these tests that are mentioned in the table and in this testing scheme, we have the detailed information again here. So starting all the time with primer table, reaction mix, information on thermocyclers, the cycle sequencing reactions, and then the characteristics of the amplified region. So for instance here you have gyrase B, a protein coding region, translation table 11 applies, and you would have the codon starting in reading frame 3 of the primer trimmed consensus sequence. So that was Appendix 2. For bacteria, we have Appendix 3, fungi and oomycetes. The makeup is exactly the same. Invasive plant species are Appendix 4. Nematodes are Appendix 5. And the last one of the organism-specific appendices is Appendix 6, which deals with the DNA barcoding of phytoplasmas. So a question we get often is, why are there no DNA barcoding tests available for viruses? That has a simple explanation. Since these viruses are so diverse, we cannot design generic amplification primers that would serve as a kind of barcode that would be used in a barcode strategy. The guidance that we do provide on generating data, producing consensus sequences, and how to analyze your data using online databases also applies to viruses and viroids. So then we advance to Appendix 7, Consensus Sequence Preparation and Data Analysis. So first of all, it describes that you really would need to use analysis software that would allow you to work with trace data, electropherograms. These are important to identify and to determine the reliability of your consensus sequence. And we have examples of that in the other presentations in the Practibar course package. Then we give guidance on performing Sanger sequencing, and then an important section on consensus sequence preparation, which we'll discuss in detail in other presentations. Under the essential procedural information, we describe the controls that can be used. Also, we have a statement on validation of the analysis of Sanger sequence data. And then we have tables with background information on online resources. Also, to help end users to interpret their BLAST output, we provide some guidance on how to interpret tree views. Then we provide a suggested form for consensus preparation and data analysis on how to report your findings. And this will also be explained in detail in the other presentations of this course package. And then we have the G blocks, which are synthetic sequences. The sequence is provided here, which you can order at any commercial company producing primers. You can include this G block as a positive amplification control. It will also help you to assess the quality of the Sanger sequence data that has been performed and how well you assembled the consensus sequence. And we have one for every appendix. And this concludes the EPPO standard.